Now, we talked about this morning and probably beat this horse, but I may even have some folks who weren't here this morning. That's happened in a few sessions. That the owner of a motor vehicle purchased in this state for which a title was issued, owner after January 1, 12 and prior to March 1, 2013, may elect to opt in. Now, we talked about how we figure out what they need to pay. So you have the vehicle value minus trade-in times 6.5% if it's a dealer sale, and this would be in the first year, or the vehicle straight times the rate if it's a casual sale, and what the credits are. And if that calculation, you've applied those credits, is more than what the title tax dude gets to opt in, doesn't have to pay anything else. If it's less, it's his choice. He doesn't have to opt in if he doesn't want to. But if he wants to, he's going to have to pay the additional money due. But if he chooses not to opt in, he needs to understand he's going to say subject to that old ad valorem tax. So he doesn't just get to not do. Now this is an affidavit, and these don't show up real well. Sorry, I told y'all every time I tried to do something creative, it acts ugly. Blow it up a little bit. Hopefully it won't freeze on me. Maybe it did. This affidavit basically says, I am the owner of the vehicle. It was purchased in Georgia. I received this vehicle from an immediate family member or wherever I got it, but I want to opt in. You'll also notice down here, this last line says, any person who falsifies any information in this affidavit shall be subject to a penalty not to exceed $2,500 as a state penalty and not to exceed $2,500 as a local penalty as determined by the State Revenue Commissioner. Now, this is one of many affidavits we're going to look at this afternoon, and they all should have this language on there, because all we have to make determinations are of what the taxpayer tells us in lots of cases. So there's also an opt-in letter. Oh, back to this affidavit. Let me go back. This affidavit is saying I want to opt in. We've had some counties request that we put a checkbox on here that says I do not want to opt in. So that if you've talked to the taxpayer and you've walked through the process and the taxpayer says, no, never mind, I don't really want to do that. And then they come back after the first of the year in 2014 and say, but I wanted to opt in. You at least have some coverage that, yeah, we had this conversation. Now, the problem is you're not going to have that conversation with everybody, right? You're only going to have that conversation with the ones who actually come into the office. So we probably will add that. It just may not be there March 1st. There's nothing wrong with you handing them this affidavit if they say they don't want to, and just say, how about right on here, I don't choose to opt in. Now, if I came into your office in June and you walked me through this process and said, well, Ms. Lambert, do you want to opt in? And I said, no, I don't think I want to. Because I might think that you're trying to sell me a bill of goods, and at the end of the day, it wasn't going to benefit me much. So I had to go home and think about it. Now, I might have signed and said, hey, I don't want to opt in. If I come back to your office December the 31st, I can still opt in. Now, I said I didn't want to back here, but until December, close of business on December 31st, that window is still open to me to opt in. So I just kind of put that out there as something to think about. Then I can change my mind. Now, interestingly enough, once they opt in, there's really not any way to kind of opt back out. But I don't know why anybody would really want to, particularly if they bought at a dealer and, they didn't pay anything anyway, and they weren't going to have to pay anything going forward. I'm not sure why they wouldn't want to. Now, you should have gotten an email over the last few weeks about the opportunity to mail a letter to your taxpayer saying, hey, you're a taxpayer who bought a new vehicle. You have the opportunity to opt in. There's a couple of advantages to doing this, and whether you do it or don't do it is totally your call. Number one, you have to foot the bill. because I don't have the money to do it, as much as I would love to do that for you. I just simply don't have the budget money. One of the things about doing this letter is maybe you can control the number of folks coming into your office. There was some conversation about, let's just blitz it out and do it all at one time. And I went, you have got to be kidding. You don't want to do that to those folks. They'll have lines wrapped around the courthouse, because if people get a letter that says, you know, March 1st, opt in, they're going to come in. You don't really want them all there March 1st. You quite frankly don't want them there the next Monday or the next week while everybody's getting used to this. So the one thing about doing this letter, at least you're not notifying the world at that time. Because there is a schedule. These will go out on the same schedule that renewal notices, so hopefully you catch the person before they renew. Or they could do it at the same time. So that would kind of help you manage what's going to happen in your office. Now, it's not going to stop those folks who are just sitting there waiting on March 1st, and they're going to be there when they're going to be waiting on you when you get there March 1st. They're going to be waiting on you. You're going to have a handful of folks who think they have to do it March 1st. There's just no way around that. This letter is also available that you can pull up in Gratis. I think a couple of you have already stumbled across it, to where you can send it out, but you kind of have to have that taxpayer there and know it's not like a batch run you can pull. Now, this is what the notification schedule would look like if you opt to go with that. Will be that if you mail a letter out in March of 2013, it will be for your June business renewals, and in March 2013 we'll catch your May individual renewals. So we've kind of missed that window in January to catch a lot of these folks, but you will be able to catch most of them going forward. Also, if you notice in October, it looks like there's a whole bunch of busyness in that. Basically what happens in October is we try to catch everybody, even through that next first part of the year, to make sure they understand they have to be in there by December 31st. But again, this is your option whether or not you want to send them. We've just made it available as something. The last thing you want people saying, well, I didn't know, you didn't tell me.
That's in branch administration, the letter.
I didn't say that because you know I don't know.
I've looked for it and I haven't been able to find it.
It's not there yet. We're trying to get all the letters and stuff in.
Okay, Crystal says it's not there yet. It must be in the test. Somebody saw it somewhere though.
Somebody had mentioned last week that
I know, somebody found it. Okay.
It's on each record. Yes.
So if you're dealing with that taxpayer, also we'll talk about it a little bit later. It may be on this next slide.
But if we want to pull it out and mail it out, where do we find it? If we want
That's the only way to do it right now, is on an individual basis. It's not in there as a batch of letters.
Okay.
Not yet. And I'm not sure how quickly we could even do that. But if you're dealing with that customer at your window, Gratis was going to tell you, hey, you have an opt-in customer in front of you. So you'll be able to have that conversation. Again, that's going to extend that transaction time, right? And this is where it's important that all your clerks, I know you can't necessarily bring all your clerks to a training class. Now, some of you have closed your office and everybody's here, right? But some haven't, and some are just so large that they will never be able to get all their folks in. Somebody's got to go home and make sure every clerk on the line knows this. So that's your job. You're the trainer? That's the trainer. All right. If they go on the website to do online renewal, they will also get a message that says, hey, you're an opt-in folk, you need to go talk to the county. So they'll get that message. For those who go through the IVR, the customer's not going to know it. We couldn't handle that. So those customers are going to get through and won't know that they could opt in. So that's basically the opt-in process. Now when Crystal gets up here in a little bit, she'll actually walk you through walking through a transaction with an opt-in.